Hi, everybody. Thank you all for your patience. I'm going to be getting started here in just a second. I just have to get my screen stuff set up. So let me go ahead and do that. I want to acknowledge the fact, too, that it's very sunny outside and you are all here. So thank you for sharing our limited sun time. All right, so it looks like I've got everything set up on my end. So we will go ahead and get started. All right, so let me just make sure I've got it turned on. Throughout tonight, just a couple of tech things for those of you who haven't been on our webinars before. We're going to utilize either the chat box or the Q&A box for any questions that you might have along the way. The chat box is down here, and you should see a little notification. So you can respond back to that chat and have access if you have any questions or comments along the way. Tonight's seminar is a partnership between Cornell Small Farms Program's FarmOps initiative and our program, the Southwest New York Dairy, Livestock, and Field Crops program. We're a 5-county partnership between Cornell University and the CCE Associations of Erie, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Allegany, and Steuben. Our team has 4 specialists. Myself, I am Katelyn Walley-Stoll, and I am our team's farm business management specialist. So I cover, I like to word it as people, paperwork, and hopefully a profit. We also have Amy Barkley, who is normally on these webinars with me and is available for assistance for livestock and beginning farmers, as well as Katelyn Miller, our team's field crop specialist, and Camila Lage, our team's dairy management specialist. So if you're located within the 5-county region that we cover, you can reach out with any questions or concerns, and we can do site visits and things like that. If you're outside of our 5-county region, you can still reach out and I'll help you however I can, and then refer you over to the equivalent of me in your region. A couple of quick disclaimers that you guys have probably already seen if you've been to any of our webinars at this point. The information that I'm providing tonight is for educational and reference purposes only. And more importantly, since we will be talking about business topics, I'm not an accountant, a tax professional, or financial advisor, so you should always consult with a professional, which in some cases may also include sound legal counsel or a more elaborate farm management team. If you run into any tech issues along the way, if for some reason your computer crashes and you can't get back on, feel free to call or text. My number is the top number there, and I will try to help assist you however I can. All right. Shameless plug, we have several seminars that we're partnering with FarmOps on throughout the season, so I just wanted to draw your attention to them. Following tonight's webinar, you'll get like a follow-up email with information and resources, including all of the registration links for these. So we have one coming up in May on raising poultry for meat production. We're going to have a goat discussion circle, which I'm super excited about. So if any of you took our goat seminars from last year, this is going to be kind of a check-in, a next step, dive into some more intermediate level goat topics. We're also going to have seminars on hogs, hops, and honey, oh my, which will be about farm diversification. So talking about options for diversifying your farm. We'll do one on processing poultry for meat production. This will actually include hands-on videos of us going through processing broilers from start to finish. So you can see exactly what to do, replay those videos, and ask questions. And then this fall, we're going to be having a couple more. So we'll do one on protecting against Murphy's Law. So kind of thinking about everything that can go wrong on a farm and making a plan for any emergencies that might pop up. And then this was a request from a lot of you following our other seminars this season. So we really do listen to you, and we really do take the feedback that you give us. So we'll be hosting a seminar on making a farm business plan. But tonight, you are all here to talk about minding your marketing P's and Q's. So this is all about marketing the products that you're raising on your farm and doing it in a way that is smart, is profitable, and is the best option for your farm. So tonight, I'm gonna start out strong right from the gate. I have 2 slides that explain my entire presentation, and that's what I'm gonna start out with. So if you are more of I want to just listen to the first 30 seconds, this is my 30-second elevator pitch that will give you all the information you need to know about designing a marketing plan for your farm. Then we'll go into actually defining what a marketing plan is, talking about setting smart marketing goals, identifying and evaluating different channels, marketing channels, so different places that you can sell and move your product, and how to figure out which one's going to work best for you. We'll talk about actually creating a marketing plan. And then at the end, I'm going to save time. We will pop up our evaluation. Like I mentioned before, there's a couple of spaces on that evaluation where you can add ideas for future topics. And we really do listen to those, and we adjust what we're offering based on what you are looking for and how we can help you. As we go along, there's lots of time for questions and comments, so feel free to use the chat. We do have everybody's mic and video off at this time just to help with bandwidth, but there's a little icon at the bottom of your screen where you can select to raise your hand. So if you do have a question that is harder to chat, or if you want to be unmuted to ask or comment, just do the raise your hand thing and I can unmute you that way. And then as I mentioned, everyone will be receiving a follow-up email with the slides, resources, and the survey link. Okay, any questions so far? Doesn't look like it. So charging forth. This is, as I promised, these next 2 slides explain everything you need to know about marketing for a farm. So be prepared, okay? Here's the first slide. Anybody who's taken an introductory farm business class, right? Whether that was in high school or if you went to college and took a business 101 course, you've probably seen a version of this graphic along the way. So this graphic describes what we call the 4 Ps. The 4 Ps are the 4 Ps of marketing. And when we consider the 4 Ps, we're going to think about what we're selling to the product. We're going to think about how much we're selling it for, price, how we're selling it, how are we promoting it, how are we telling people that we have goods to sell, promotion, and then place. Where are we selling it? So these are the 4 Ps. Everything, this oversimplifies the decisions that we have to make as farmers, right? If only it could be this easy. But at the end of the day, when we're thinking about designing a marketing plan, this is really what it comes down to. And in the center of our little infographic here is the target market, right? The consumer. Who are you selling your product to? So when we think about the marketing mix in this graphic, at the very center is our target audience. So who's our target consumer? Who are we trying to sell our products to? Because once we define who our target audience is, who our target consumer is, the products that we're selling, our price points, our promotion, and our place change, okay? So one comment that several of you probably already have thought is, well, my target consumer is everybody. I want to sell my products to everybody. And here's the problem with that. If you are trying to design a product, design a marketing plan around every single person on the planet, your marketing efforts are going to be equally useless to everybody. And I mean that with all of the love that I can possibly send through a Zoom webinar. It is not as simple as saying, my target consumer is everybody. When we say that my target consumer is everybody, that means that you're going to be nobody's perfect fit, right? So when we think about designing a marketing plan, the better thing to do is to clearly define the center, your target market, your target consumer, by saying that my target consumer is community members who live within 10 miles. They are low to middle income, and they want food products that are easy to feed their families, right? It's a simple product that they're familiar with. Your target audience might be higher end customers that are looking for specialty products, that are looking for willing to pay a higher price for a different type of product or some type of certification. So if they wanted a USDA organic certification, would be an example. Now, if I said in that scenario, right, so we have our lower middle income community members that want easy food that they can feed their family that they're familiar with, and higher income niche market consumers, right? And I went with the route of, I want to develop a marketing plan that feeds both people, that grabs both people's attention. There's no way to create a targeted marketing campaign that's going to catch everybody's attention. So it's important to design your marketing plan for your one target consumer, right? And I've taken a couple of marketing classes before where we actually sat down and gave our target consumer a name. We gave our target consumer an age. We made up a story about what their job was. We made up a story about what their income was, what types of food they were looking for. So that then when you have your perfect consumer in your head, you are going to corner the market for that perfect consumer because you're developing products and prices and promoting it in a way that will absolutely catch their attention. And then you're going to bring everybody in their circles with them, right? So if your perfect audience is middle income mom with 3 kids that is purchasing food on a budget and wants something that's quick and easy, right? If that's your target audience and that's how you're designing your promotions for your farm, is for that singular person, then you're also going to catch people that are along the way. So people that have 1 kid, people that have no kids, but they still want something quick and easy, people that maybe have higher income, but they want to pick up a package of ground beef or pick up some cheap peppers on their way from home. So by designing that perfect marketing plan for your target consumer, you're still catching other people around them, but you're making sure that you are building yourself a niche. That's my pitch. So when I do this seminar in person, usually there's some people fighting me, but you guys, I can't see your faces, so hopefully you're not grumpy at me. So once we define our target market, our consumer, our ideal perfect consumer that we are going to market our product to, we can then make decisions about what types of products does that consumer want? What price can that consumer afford? And how can I raise products that are within that price point? How am I going to promote it to that specific consumer? And where is that consumer? Where am I going to get these products to them? So we start with our core. Who are we selling it to? And then this outer circle, this next circle, these are things that we can control. These are things that we choose. We choose what products we're selling. We choose what price we're selling them for. We choose as farmers how we're going to promote it. And we choose as farmers where we're going to sell our products. Okay. Sometimes we might be forced, right, into a corner and not have very many options. So it might not seem like we're making that choice. But those are all things that we can decide on that are within our control. Now, I'm noticing that this is a little bit blurry, so hopefully everybody can see it. And if not, it'll show up on your slides. But now we look at the things that are outside of our control that still affect our decisions for marketing. So outside of our control, what does the technological and natural environment look like? Outside of our control, let's say that one way that we were going to promote our product is by using social media. Something outside of our control is, what if the social media site that we were using goes down, right? Let's say, and if we're thinking about natural environment, let's say that we go to a farmer's market, one specific farmer's market, and that's where we're selling our product. And because of a storm, that parking lot is getting redone and that farmer's market's going to be closed for the season. So now that was something that was decided outside of our control that we can't affect, but it's in that natural environment, but it's going to affect how we're selling our products, right? social and cultural environment, political, legal environment, demographic, economic environment are all outside of our control considerations that come into play when we're thinking about marketing. And we'll talk more about all of those later. So the reason that I spent 10 minutes on this slide is, like I said at the beginning, this slide explains everything when it comes to developing a marketing plan for your farm. Any questions so far? Let me just check quick. And again, please feel free to type anything in the chat as we go along. Oh, Nina, go ahead.
Oh, Katelyn, I just wanted to mention, sometimes you create your marketing plan and you're in the middle of your operational season and things happen and you realize customers that you didn't realize existed. An example would be Jeffrey and I were selling our vegetables at a farmer's market in Moravia, and there's an assisted living facility there. And a lot of those individuals started coming to market asking for very specific things. And because they live by themselves, they're looking for certain sizes of vegetables, or they want them packaged in smaller amounts. Sometimes some of the things that we package, they just like, you know, we're just not going to eat all that in a week. Can you repackage them? And so Jeffrey and I had to go back, talk about the things, and kind of add this into our marketing plan. We did make some immediate shifts, but we had to add it in our marketing plan for the next year, or we would have lost those customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good example of like redefining your target market, right? So you went to that market with an idea of what you were going to sell, how much you were going to sell it for, and who you were going to sell it to, right? And then all of a sudden, here's a new target market. So you could have ignored them and kept all of these things the same, but by going back and having a conversation, readjusting your marketing plan to meet a different target consumer, right? Now you're creating a niche for that consumer where they're going to come and purchase those products. So I appreciate you sharing that, Nina, because one of the things that we'll talk about tonight is that developing a marketing plan is meant to be fluid, right? So it's not meant to be something that you do once at the very beginning of starting your farm and then you never look at it again. It's something that you might be making day-to-day changes based on feedback that you're getting, based on products that are moving or not moving, based on requests from potential customers. So that's an excellent example. Thank you, Nina. Okay, so here's slide 2. Maybe now it's going to be extra fancy because it's taking too long to load. So anticipation, right? This is just a simplified version of the 4 Ps. So as a reminder, our 4 Ps: price, product, promotion, place. These are all marketing considerations that we can control. When it comes to considering a market plan for your farm, it is very important to consider marketing ahead of time. You should never do anything, plant anything, grow anything, buy anything without knowing who you're going to sell it to. And this is really important. So don't do anything on your farm without knowing who you're going to sell it to. And now it's in bold, so you know it's extra, extra important. Don't do anything on your farm without knowing who you're going to sell it to. And now it's in bold and it's capitalized, so you know it's extremely important. You should not plant anything, grow anything, plan to do anything without knowing exactly who you are going to sell that product to. I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call from somebody that's like, oh, I bought, you know, a herd of 30 goats and I can't find anybody who wants to purchase these goats or who wants to eat goat meat. And you're going to figure it out, right? You're going to be forced to figure it out. But knowing who your market might be before you went out and bought the 30 goats might have been a better idea or something to consider ahead of time. Even if you have to change your marketing plan later on, you should have an idea of where you're going to sell that product before you plant, before you buy, before you start raising animals. Okay, so now we'll move on to actually defining what a marketing plan is. A marketing plan answers the question of how are you going to bring goods to consumers? So this again considers yourself as the farmer. It looks at the market potential that you have around you. It defines who your target customer is and describes your business and how your business meets a niche, meets a need out in the community that other businesses can't. And that's why people should buy from you. And then finally, you define how you're going to communicate your product, your price, your promotion to your potential target customers. This can be a part of your business plan or a standalone plan. So a lot of times, if anybody's taken a business planning course before, there's usually a section within that business plan that focuses on marketing. The marketing plan can be its own separate thing, though, too. The other consideration, though, too, is that if we look at having a marketing plan as essential before we start growing, before we start planting, then the marketing plan goes hand in hand with the business plan, whether or not they're completely commingled or they're just two separate things that you've kind of gone through. When it comes to business plans and marketing plans, I like to describe it as there's two different plans, right? There's the Word document plan. This is the one that gets sent to the bank. This is the one that you put together in a business 101 class and then you never look at again. In my very humble opinion, a marketing plan, a business plan is way more than a Word document. These are living documents on your farm that you're constantly reviewing, adjusting, making changes to. If you try something and it doesn't work, you go back to your plan, you fix something, you tweak something, you try it again. The other thing that I encourage people to think about is get away from the idea of it has to be a really pretty document, right? It has to be laminated in a 3-ring binder with color-coded tabs. It doesn't. I think I've shared with most of you before that my husband and I have a small diversified livestock farm, and our business plan is a notebook. And every time we get an idea, we put it down. Every time we want to do a new product and we're thinking about who are we going to sell it to, we write down a marketing plan. And it's just a notebook that sits on our kitchen table or the counter or wherever the kids shove it eventually. It's something that we're revisiting, we're rehashing, and it doesn't have to look pretty. It just has to be functional for us. Some of the best marketing plans and business plans end up on napkins at restaurants. They end up on back of envelopes that you get that are sitting on the kitchen table when you're thinking about new ideas. So in my workshops and trainings that I do on business planning and marketing planning, I encourage you to think about a business plan, think about a marketing plan as a process and not a product. So if your marketing plan is a product, that means at the end of it, you are going to have a very fancy binder to give to whoever you want to develop this for. If you think of marketing plans as a process, then you're going to go into it as, I need to answer these questions for myself so that my farm can be as profitable as possible, so that my farm can be sustainable, so that my farm can meet the needs that I need it to. So again, think about marketing plans, business plans, any of like the kind of not digging in the dirt parts of farming, right? Think about these as a process instead of a product. So when we talk about developing a marketing plan, I don't mean you have something pretty at the end. I mean, you have answered these questions for yourself. You have gone through this thought process. You have defined who your target audience is, what your products are, and how you're going to sell them without having to write it up in a fancy document. Now, if using a document to write those thoughts down, like a Word document, a binder, a notebook, is a way for you to process, then that's great, right? But take away the pressure of it has to be perfect, because it needs to be functional, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You can go back to it, you can change it. It doesn't need to be something that you print out and you never look at again. It's a process that you're going to go through. And most importantly, just make sure you use it, right? So I'm guessing that a couple of you out there have gone through a class like this before, where you've made a marketing plan or a business plan. And I'm also guessing that you never looked at it again, right? And it happens. But when we adjust our thinking of this is a product, right? This is a marketing plan that I just have to put together and get it over with, to this is a process that I can continually revisit and think about as I'm continuing to grow my farm. I think it makes it more useful for us. Okay, so what does a marketing plan look like in real life? This is an example from my farm. So Stoll Family Farm provides pasture-raised beef for our local community at a fair price while upholding our farm family values. This is like our marketing mission statement, right? This is my elevator pitch. When somebody says, hey, why should I buy beef from you? Here's exactly why you should buy beef from me. But because my farm is continuing to grow and I have goals and places that I want to get to, right? I have a goal of increasing bulk meat sales. Let's just say that that's the goal. I don't know why we're changing slides here. So if the goal is to increase bulk meat sales, I can develop a functional marketing plan to meet that goal, which will support my mission, right? What I'm trying to accomplish with my farm. So I can develop a strategy, and this is just an example to give you guys an overview as we continue through the presentation. But my strategy could be to build a new customer base through smaller sales. My target audience is somebody that I'm going to very specifically define. Mid-level income families with rural backgrounds who live within 20-minute drive of our house. How am I going to implement this, right? I'm going to use word of mouth sales. How much money is this plan going to cost my farm? It's free, it's my time, but I'm not writing myself a paycheck, unfortunately, so it's free. Who's going to do the work? When is this going to happen? And what would the outcome look like? How are we going to know that we're being successful with our marketing plan? So this is a marketing plan right here. I went through the process, I answered these questions for myself. It's not a 30-page document that I printed out and got laminated at Office Max. This is a process that I went through to decide how am I going to meet my goals with marketing. So keep this in mind as we continue to go through this presentation. So what I want everybody to do, and there's going to be lots of awkward silences in tonight's presentation, but it's all on purpose. So everybody go grab a piece of paper if you don't already have one. Or if you're like me, you just have like random notepads and back of the envelope. So grab a piece of paper, notepad, back of an envelope, and a pen. There's going to be 3 or 4 of these throughout this presentation where I'll give everybody 3 or 4 minutes to answer some questions. And I would encourage you to use that time, not to check your phone, not to tell the kids to go away, not to check out for a second. I would encourage you to intentionally use that time to answer those questions that I'm asking you, that I'm posing, and write that down. Because what will happen is at the end of tonight, if you have answered these questions for yourself, you're going to have a marketing plan at the end of an hour presentation, which I think is pretty stellar. So grab your piece of paper and think about these questions and answer them for yourself. So if you were to make a marketing plan, what would your goal be? Is your goal to get new customers? Is your goal to increase your sales to existing customers? Is your goal to reach new markets, right? You're only selling off of your farm to friends and family, and you want to start going to farmers markets. You want to start selling to restaurants. If you were to make a marketing plan, what would your goal be? And then what's one way that you could meet those goals? So for example, if my goal was to increase sales to new customers, one way that I could meet those goals is to do like a friends and family referral, right? So take my existing customers, say, hey, you'll get 10% off if you bring a friend. And now I've increased the number of new customers. And depending on your goal, the way that you could potentially reach that goal is going to be different. And then ask yourself, how would a marketing plan help you? So for me, if we go back to that example, a marketing plan will help me because it's going to hold me accountable. It's going to remind me that I need to make cold calls, right? I need to find new customers. I need to spend time on marketing instead of spending time on the fun part of farming. So what is something that you need to do, and how can that marketing plan help you. Grab a piece of paper, answer these questions for you. And if you don't have the perfect answers right now, that's okay. If you came to this space thinking, well, you're supposed to be telling me what I'm supposed to do, that's okay too. I want you to just let your brain do what it does and try to answer these 3 questions for yourself. I'm going to turn my video off, turn my mic off. I would encourage you all to sit in quiet for, let's give it 4 minutes and answer these questions. I'm going to give everybody 2 more minutes. And in the meantime, if you have your marketing goal, you can go ahead and type that in the chat. So 2 more minutes. Okay, so at this time, I would invite everybody back to the space. You officially have started making your marketing plan. So keep track of that paper because we'll have a few other opportunities to write down some notes and thoughts for yourself. If you feel comfortable doing so, you can share what your farm's marketing plan, your marketing goal might be in the chat. And you'll find that a lot of people have very similar marketing goals. So Michael shared that they would like to get their goods to a farmer's market, contact a local market, give them an idea of what they can sell at a market versus wholesale to local farm stores. Great. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of times too, our marketing goals tend to be, scooching. We might have found success with one pathway to sell our products, but we see opportunities in other pathways. All right, so please continue to feel free to type those goals in the chat. So to take a deep breath, here's a random marketing tip. So is keeping up with the competition worth it? Let's say that you sell green peppers, they're pretty great, and you sell them at $1 each. Your neighbor also sells peppers, they're pretty great too, but he sells them for 50 cents each. Should you change your price? You're selling them for $1, your neighbor's selling them for 50 cents, they both are similar quality. Should you change your price? Your options are yes, no, or it depends. And I don't think, let me just check. Yeah, they didn't get loaded in right. So go ahead and type it in the chat. What do you think? You think you should change your price if you can sell them for $1, but your neighbor's selling them for 50 cents? Yes, no, it depends. Thanks, Nina. Nina says it depends. So if you've been to any of our webinars before, you'll know that the answer is almost always, it depends. Maybe, maybe not, and here's why. You should know your cost of production. So if your cost of production to produce a pepper is $1, if you dropped your price down to 50 cents just to kind of keep up with your neighbors, then that means that every single time you sell a pepper, you're losing 50 cents. So in that situation, it might be better to just sell no peppers and you stop growing peppers, right? If you can't compete. And this is an oversimplified example. But I think that sometimes we determine prices for our goods based on what our neighbors, what our competition is selling, versus looking at our own farms and reflecting on how much does it cost us to make that product. So I can oftentimes go to a farm and we calculate out what their cost of production is, and they're losing money, and they've been losing money for 10 years. And because there's cash coming in, they make it work, right? But they're selling products for less than what it cost them to produce that product. Michael shared red ocean versus blue ocean, right? These are two completely different situations, right? So it's still a pepper, but you shouldn't try to compete with your competitors because your situation might be different. Okay, so now we're going to talk about setting goals. Setting goals is super important, and it's just as important for our farm production, right? So we want to increase the amount of peppers that we're growing. We want to double the size of our market garden. We want to raise more goats, right? We all have goals associated with our farm. And these goals are just as important when it comes to creating a marketing plan. So goals help to create opportunities and accountability within our farm. It helps to remind us why we're doing something so we can avoid instant gratification, because that's usually not the best thing for continued growth, right? So if we go back to that peppers question of I'm selling mine for $1 and my neighbor's selling them for 50 cents, so I just go out and make that decision on the fly and I change my price so I can start selling them too. It might feel good to do that, be like, I made a decision, right? But if it's not a decision that serves us, serves our farm and meets our goals, then we're not going to continue to grow in the way we want to do. John shared, find a different way to sell the peppers, which is a great example, right? So if you know how much it's going to cost you and you can't compete with your neighbor, then you can take your peppers someplace else and sell them where that $1 a pepper might be cheaper than somebody else. And then having a goal in mind will help you to avoid in the moment pitfalls and give you a sense of direction, right? So again, we go back to the pepper example. You might feel defeated, frustrated if you find out that your neighbors are selling something for less than what you're selling it for. But if you know what your goals are, if you have a plan in mind, if you've got places that you're going, it's going to help you to avoid that in the moment frustration and poor decision making. So we're going to do another couple of minutes of silence. And what I want everybody, you know what, we already had this one, didn't we? Yep, this was my fault. We're going to keep going. So now it's time to kind of reflect on your farm and what you are doing currently and what skills you need to do what you're doing currently, but better, right? What's missing? So if your marketing strategy isn't working right now, why isn't it working? What pieces are missing? Are you ready for different marketing? So a lot of times we jump right into farming and we don't have a marketing plan. Let's say, for example, our marketing plan is just texting our friends and saying, hey, come pick up X, Y, and Z. And now we want to grow it. But are we ready to grow that? Do we have enough product? Do we meet the regulations or specifications for whatever new market we're considering? How will you address any weaknesses in your marketing efforts? So let's say you know that you need social media presence to grow your farm's marketing efforts, but you don't have those skills. How are you going to address that, and how are you going to improve those skills? You'll find that a lot of my presentations are just asking questions. So I would encourage you to reflect on how do these questions apply to your farm, and how would you answer these if I was asking you these in person? Can you create an action plan? Are there steps that you can take to meet your goals? And the answer is always yes, right? There's always something that you can do to get closer to your goals. So can you write those down and give yourself a to-do list? Can you write those down and make a plan? One way that we can write those down and make a list, make a plan, is by using something called SMART goals. And we will do a SMART goal activity in just a second. So these are thinking about our current farm business and what we have, but then we also need to think about ourselves and how our marketing plan affects our well-being and helps us meet our personal goals. So what's your personal capacity as a farm owner to make sure that your marketing is successful? A lot of times as farm owners, we don't have enough money to pay for employees. So we're doing most of the grunt work, the manual labor for the farm. We're also paying the bills. We're also making the decisions. We're also answering all the questions. Marketing can get shoved to last because it takes up extra space in our brains that we just don't have. More and more now, I'm working with farms that recognize that, and they're making the decision to say, okay, I'm going to pay for somebody to come and do chores one day a week so that I can sit down and get caught up on paperwork and think about marketing or be more intentional or go to a farmer's market. I'm going to outsource some of my marketing because I know I don't have the capacity for it, and I could pay somebody who's more efficient at marketing than I am. Do you have systems in place to focus on marketing? Do you have a computer that you can use to put together social media ads? Do you have a car to get to a farmer's market? Do you have contacts within a wholesale system to sell to restaurants? Do you have the pieces in place, transportation, time, physical equipment to focus on marketing? And what are the bottlenecks that you need to address, that you need to fix before you can grow your current marketing plan? And most of the time we know the answer to these questions, right? But I think very rarely do we ever sit down and try to answer them for ourselves and write it out or say it out loud or talk it over with our farm management team. So one way that we can have this conversation is through SMART goals. SMART goals stand for goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. A SMART goal starts out with a goal that you would typically make, and then you make adjustments to that goal. You make it specific. You answer, what is it that you actually want to accomplish? You make it measurable. How can you quantify that accomplishment? You make it achievable. Is this goal realistic with my farm and what I currently have and the resources that I have? Is it relevant? Does this fit into my why bother and my farm's mission? And is it time bound? Do I have a deadline? Do I have a time that I need to do this by? So here's an example. Let's say on my farm, I know that I need to get better at cold calling new customers. So I always get referrals from friends and family, and I feel really weird on the phone, so I never call them, right? So I make this specific by saying, I would like to improve my skills at cold calling new customers to help make the sale. I make this measurable by saying I need 4 new customers. I make it attainable by saying, you know, I don't have the skills to do this, but I have a friend who works in sales and they're really good at cold calls. So I can ask them to make the first one. I can listen to them, I can watch them, and then I can take notes and they can help support me. So this is identifying, I don't have the skills to do this, but I have the resources to obtain those skills. Is it relevant? Yes, because in order to grow my business, I need more customers. And how is it time bound? This product's going to be available by May 1st, so I need the customers by then. So then we circle back and we rewrite our goal. So we went from, I need to get better at cold calling customers, right? I need to do this better. I need to spend time on social media. I need to get to a new farmer's market. I need to start talking to restaurants. We change that to something that's actionable, that we are breaking down into bite-sized pieces, but something that we can accomplish. So by May 1st, I will have 4 new customers that came from cold calls. My friend will help me grow my skills to help me grow my business. So it's a process. It's a thinking process. So what I would like for everybody to do now is take 2 minutes and go back to what your marketing goal was and try to make it a SMART goal. So if your marketing goal was to get to a new market, then you make it specific by saying what market. You make it measurable by saying this is how much money it's going to cost to get to that market. You make it achievable by saying, yes, like I have that day that's free, I have the transportation. Is it relevant? Does it meet your farm goals? And how is it time bound? Well, the market starts on May 15th, so I need to be there by then. So let's take 2 minutes and think about your goal, or if that one doesn't fit, come up with a new one and go through this process of trying to turn your goal into a SMART goal. Okay, so just another minute. Write yourself down a SMART goal for your marketing plan and share it in the chat if you feel comfortable doing that. Okay, so now you have a marketing plan and actionable steps to meet your marketing plan or your marketing goals. Nina shared in for her SMART goal by 2024, I will contact 3 local sellers of products containing medicinal herbs and offer to grow one of those herbs for each potential customer for their 2024 needs. So that's a perfect goal, right? Creating a new market, you're giving yourself steps to take, so reaching out to a specific number of people. And it's not just an open-ended goal like, oh yeah, I want to try to start growing more medicinal herbs. You're making it very specific and attainable and achievable, and it's supporting your overall farm goals. So thank you for sharing that, Nina. Okay, so now this is what we just went through. And to kind of take a deep breath, here's another random marketing tip. Let's say you heard that you should do a marketing assessment. And a marketing assessment, for those of you who haven't done one before, is a fair, concise, and unbiased review of consumer perceptions, market conditions, business vitality, and opportunities as it concerns your business products. So you are typically paying a third-party company to come in, analyze your products, analyze your market, do some surveys, some market research, and it gives you an assessment of you're not meeting the needs of your market, here's what you need to change. You read that this is a good part of your marketing plan, and you read about what you needed to assess it. So consumer perception, competitive interest, pricing, demographics, branding, and you think that it's a lot of work for your farm business. So instead of like going through that whole marketing assessment, you're just going to ask your family for feedback about your products, for feedback about your ideas. So you know that there's a Memorial Day picnic happening, right? So you're going to bring some samples. You're going to bring your cheese. You're going to bring your bread, and you're going to ask everybody for their opinion. Should you do this? Yes? No? Or it depends? What do you think? Go ahead and type yes, no, or it depends in the chat if you feel comfortable doing so. Yes, we've got a yes. Good. I'll tell you that for my family, my immediate reaction would be no, because they're going to be super mean to me. All right, here's the answer. It's a surprise. Ready? It depends. So you should do a marketing assessment. If you're a beginning farm and you don't have the resources to do a big marketing assessment, you can send out a poll to your current customers. You can ask customers that are at a market, like, hey, do you like this cheese or this cheese better? In some cases, you might not want to ask your family. In other cases, you might want to ask your family. Typically, when we're asking friends and family for a assessment, we're not going to get that unbiased feedback, but it can be biased in a way that's helpful. So if you get super incredibly supportive feedback that doesn't take into consideration that there are flaws in your market, there are flaws in your plan, you could be a little bit brainwashed thinking that you've got the best thing since sliced bread, right? But you don't. Alternatively, if you ask friends and family, you can sometimes get opinions that are a little bit harsh. They're biased against you before you even hit the gate. I would say that when it comes to doing a marketing assessment, it's almost always worth it. But there are ways to kind of get around having to pay for it. And one of those ways is to ask your friends and family. So it just depends on your situation, on your product. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and talk about choosing different marketing channels and deciding which of those channels can work best for you. So as we've kind of already alluded to, there's a lot of different places that we can sell our products as farmers. These are all different options and avenues that are available to us, but very rarely are we as a farm trying to do all of them at the same time, right? So we can take products to a farmer's market, we can set up a CSA, we can use a roadside stand or an on-farm market. We could do something like U-Pick, sell directly to a grocery store, sell directly to a restaurant, sell to an auction, sell to schools. do private sales to homeowners, friends and family. We can sell on the internet. And all of these avenues help to get us to our customer, right? So at the end of the day, it goes back to defining very clearly who's your target customer, because that's going to decide what channel you're using to get to that customer. There's also the consideration too that some of these markets are more profitable than others. Typically, those more profitable markets require more risk, right? So there's this continuum of profitability, and typically as profitability increases by market, so does the risk for that market. So if we go back to beef, and it's on my mind because we just did our backyard beef seminar last night. If we think about raising and selling beef animals, our options to do that might be dropping them off at a market, selling them to friends and family, selling them on a roadside stand, out of our house, all the way up to going to a bougie farmer's market, right? And selling it to high-end customers. If we look at that continuum, our most profitable option is going to be the bougie farmer's market, right? That's where we're going to be able to set our prices really high. We're going to have a defined customer market. We do some market research and find out that nobody else is selling beef at that farmer's market. So that's where our highest profitability is. However, it's also our riskiest, right? So we have to leave our farm. We have to purchase liability insurance. We have to invest in coolers and trucks and a refrigerated trailer and signage for the market. We have to hold on to that product for an extended period of time, which can mean that animal could die. Something could go wrong at the processor. Our freezer could fail. So this is our highest profit margin, but it's also the riskiest option. Versus if we go all the way back down to the chain of just selling the animal at the market, that might be our lowest profit margin, but it's the lowest risk. We take that animal there, we get a check, right? Simple, straightforward, might have less profitability, but there's also less risk for it. So if we think about going back to defining who is our target customer, we need to analyze the different channels that we have to reach that customer and make sure that we're choosing the channel that makes the most sense for us, that we are comfortable with the level of risk that's associated with it, and that it's going to be profitable enough for our farms to stay in business. In order to do this, there's 6 different factors that we can look at when we're trying to decide on different marketing channels. These include prices and profit, volume, risk, labor, cost, and lifestyle. So if we take a second to look at each of them individually, prices and profit, we're asking ourselves, what's the potential for this channel? So if we think about our bougie farmers market, that price potential is huge, right? It's a niche market. We have a niche product. We can sell it for very high prices. If we think about the auction house, we don't get to pick how much we sell it for. We just get whatever price the bidder's willing to pay. So our next question is, what price will my consumer accept? Auction houses, they're going to want the lowest price possible. Bougie farmers market, they're going to be higher end customers that have more disposable income to spend on food products. So marketing channels will have different allowances for prices and potential profit margins. Next thing to consider is volume. Volume is the volume of product. How much product can you push through that market channel? What can that market consume within a period of time? So if we think about roadside stands in a rural community, we have a limited amount of traffic, we have limited visibility, we have a set number of customers, right? People that are driving by our house. That potential volume is going to be lower potentially than if we were selling directly to a school. School has lots of mouths to feed that are all in one set location. So every single market channel will have a different propensity for volume. How many people can they accept within a certain period of time? So generally speaking, wholesale customers, restaurants, schools, they're going to consume a higher volume, but they're going to want a lower price. direct marketing options, farm stand, farmers market, e-commerce sales. They're going to have a lower volume because you're reaching less people, but you can typically charge a higher price for that. The next thing we consider is risk, which we've already kind of alluded to. So we ask ourselves, what's the potential risk for this channel? By choosing a specific marketing channel, are you taking on extra risk by going that route? So for example, let's say that you put all of your eggs in one basket, literally load them up, take them to the local school. The local school decides halfway through the school year, after you've already raised all of your laying hens to produce enough eggs for them, that they have a different person that they want to buy their eggs from. They ran out of money, so now they're going back to buying them on the market through a bidding process. You just took on a ton of risk and got bit in the butt for it. So you put all of your eggs in one basket and now you lost your market, versus if you had had several smaller markets. So let's say you had a roadside stand, you were doing farmers markets, and you were like texting friends and family saying, hey, I have eggs available, right? It might be a little bit less risk, but it's also more work to do that. So every single market channel is going to have higher risk or less risk, depending on where you're selling it to. The next thing to consider is labor. This I find particularly important when we start talking about attending farmers markets. Very rarely do we think about all of the time that goes into prepping everything we're taking to a farmer's market, loading it in the car, driving it to the market, staying there all day, packing everything back up, bringing it back home, deciding what can get discarded, what can get sold elsewhere, unloading everything, putting all of our paperwork together, right? Farmers markets takes a lot of labor. Versus if we go back to our wholesale, and I was selling products to a school, I'm loading up one truck and making one delivery, and I'm getting a paycheck that's just as big as if I had spent 2 days prepping for a farmer's market and then standing there every day. Alternatively, if you are in the boat where you're strapped for time, but you're recognizing that you need to reach new markets and you have to pay an employee to do that, can you recoup the cost of your paid employee? So then we go on to costs. Are there entry costs associated with that market? For a farmer's market, what's the annual farmer's market fee? If we think about the school option, right? How much money is it going to cost for us to buy or rent a refrigerated truck to get our product to the school? And are there advertising costs in order to break into that market? So if we're relying on a roadside stand, for example, how much money would we have to pay in advertisements versus paying one farmer's market fee to show up at a farmer's market? And then, most importantly, is lifestyle. So I love farmers, and some farmers do not belong in public. And I mean that with all of the love possible. And they know it too, right? So I think that recognizing that you might not have gotten into farming because you really enjoy talking to people on Saturday morning in a bougie farmer's market, right? If that's not your personality, if that's not your lifestyle, don't put yourself in a position where you have to be a fake person, right? People are going to not get good vibes from you. They're going to be like, he doesn't want to be here. She doesn't want to be here. They're not going to come up to you to talk to you at that farmer's market. So if you know that a market isn't going to fit your personality, don't do it. Don't do it. Take it off the table. Find something different. If you know that the location for the market is going to take you a day to get there, so let's say you get a wholesale customer, a restaurant, right? But it's going to take you a whole day, and you just don't want to spend a whole day in the car. That's okay. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. Find a different market. At the end of the day, I think it's important to make sure that the location that you choose, the marketing avenue that you choose, fits your lifestyle, fits your needs, and fits your wants. Because if you try to force yourself into a marketing channel that doesn't fit right with you, it's not going to be successful. Nina, I saw that you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what you're saying is really important, but the key is you got to really collect the data to do that analysis. And sometimes that's a piece not everybody does. About 3 years ago, my husband was running all of our end of year numbers, and he looked at me and he said, we're going to quit going to the Aurora market, I think. And I was like, holy cow, wow, we just got into that market. And, you know, it's kind of really pleased with that. And he said, well, come here and look. He said, this is how much we made this past year. I was like, okay. And he said, this is how much we spent in gas, and here's our mileage cost. And I was like, holy cow, when you add in the 3 hours that it takes to prep for that market, get everything in the truck, and then the 35-minute drive, and then the 2 hours sitting there, and the 30-minute drive home, and then the hour and a half to unpack. It's like, yeah, you're right. We just need to stop going to that one. And it was a hard decision to make because we really like those people. Some of them were relying on us for some products, but you know, we just had to keep explaining to them, it just isn't worth it to come to this market from a business perspective, and we apologize.
Yeah, and that's an excellent example. Like I was saying, you know, I've been to several farms before where we realized like you're selling this product for less than what it costs for you to make. I was working with a farm recently that has a CSA program, and they were traveling to a city to drop off CSA shares, thinking like, oh, this is great. You know, I'm driving to one place and I'm dropping off all of these shares. The amount of gas that it took for them to drive up there, they didn't recoup the gas money from those CSA shares. So they were losing money every time they're driving up there, and that's not even including their time. For those of you who attended our Setting Your Farm Financial Resolution seminar, we talked about setting up a record-keeping system that works for you. And this is something that you can do. So you can track your numbers. It doesn't have to be something that you, it's just like an elusive number that you never look at, right? So exactly like Nina was saying, when they sat down at the end of the year and looked at their numbers for that year, oh, wait a minute, like when I put numbers to this doesn't make sense anymore. If you're making direct sales where you're setting your price and you know how much it costs for you to raise whatever you're trying to sell, then don't sell it for less than that, right? So I think that as much as we can possibly put numbers at these 6 performance factors, it's going to allow us to make better decisions. The difficult part with that is none of us farm because we really enjoy paperwork, right? So it's really hard to set aside time to look at numbers to make these decisions. So in our Setting Your Farm Financials resolution, we asked participants to decide how often are you going to sit down and look at your numbers and write that down and hold yourself accountable to it, right? So even if it's just one day a month, one night a month, on our farm, it's one night a week. Whenever I'm sitting down to pay our regular household bills, I'm also running my farm numbers and just checking in. If you have accurate records and it comes time to assess different market channels, you're going to have numbers to tie back to that. So labor, for example, just like Nina was saying, if you're going to a farmer's market and you have accurate records of this is how many times we went to this market and this is how much money we got from that market, you know that it took you the whole day to go to that farmer's market. Did you make enough money back to pay for your labor? Did you make enough money back to pay for your gas? If you're keeping accurate records and allowing yourself time, prioritizing time to analyze those records, you can make more informed decisions. Okay. We are going to skip through this just a second because we've talked about most of this so far. And what I want to do now is to give everybody 5 minutes to consider your top 2 marketing avenues, right? So if you're currently farming, what are your 2 biggest marketing channels, right? So let's say farmers markets and farm stand sales, or text messages to friends and family and selling to the local school district. Thinking about your 2 biggest marketing avenues. If you're just getting started and you don't have defined marketing avenues, marketing channels yet, think about the 2 that you are most excited about looking into and considering. Now, think about these 6 performance factors for those 2 avenues and decide on those 2, which one makes the most sense. What role does income play and which factor is most important to you? I'm going to show you an example and then I'll come back to this. So let's say my 2 options are super duper private sales, so sending texts to friends and family, and going to a farmer's market. If I think about the 6 considerations for price, right? Super duper sales, I can set my price, but I might not be able to set it as high as I need to. Versus the farmer's market, I'm going to go to a higher end farmer's market and I can set my prices higher. If we think about volume, doing super duper private text message sales, the volume's like adequate right now, but I can't really grow because there's no new people to sell to. Maybe a farmer's market, I am not selling as much in one day, but I'm making lots of contact. If we think about risk, super duper private sales, it's low risk, right? So I'm getting the commitment up front. I'm asking people ahead of time, can they buy X, Y, and Z? Versus the farmer's market might be higher risk because I don't know what type of market's going to be there. I don't know what the liability is. And then you kind of do the same thing for labor, time and travel, and kind of what our lifestyle is. So if I think about lifestyle for a farmer's market, I really like spending Saturdays at home. I don't want to go to a farmer's market. Versus super duper private sales and text messages, right? That's lower input. I can do that from my couch. So what I want everybody to do is to consider your 2 top marketing avenues, describe and compare the 6 performance factors for each of those, and determine which one seems to make the most sense, what role does potential income play, and which factor is most important to you. So the way that I would do this is take your scrap piece of paper and draw up a little chart that looks like this. Your 6 factors are prices and profit, volume, risk, labor, cost, and lifestyle. Out of these 6, right now, before you start writing, circle the one that is most important to you. So I have 4 little kids and an off-farm job, and the one that's most important to me is lifestyle because I want to prioritize balance, right? You might say, I'm a beginning farm. I have very limited income to work with. I need to prioritize costs because I need something that's lower to access at the beginning. You might say, I'm growing rapidly and I need to push more products, so volume is the most important for me. Then what you're going to do is look at your 2 markets side by side. Take little notes, put a star on the winner, right? So if we think about prices and profit, in my example, farmers markets was the winner because I have a higher price margin and a higher potential for profit. Do what I did in the previous slide as an example and put this on your scrap piece of paper. Draw your chart, pick which one's the most important, make notes and pick the winner for each option, and kind of do this as a side-by-side acknowledgement of which one of these channels is the best fit for you. I'm going to give everybody 5 minutes. Yep. Take 5 minutes and fill this chart out for yourself. If you get done before then, take a break, take a stretch. Let's all be back here at 7:22 and we will wrap up the presentation at that point. Okay, 5 minutes, write this chart and go through this for your farm. Okay, just another minute and then we will come back together. If you feel comfortable sharing in the chat which market channel is the winner for you right now, please feel free to do that. Or if you want to share which of the 6 factors is the most important to you, go ahead and do that. So we'll give everybody another minute. Okay, so we're going to keep moving ahead, but if you feel comfortable sharing which market is the best fit for you or which factor is most important to you, please feel free to do that. We're going to skip through this part quick. Okay, so now what you guys actually thought you were coming for, but as I mentioned before, I think about marketing planning as a process and not a product. This is what a marketing plan looks like. So if you were to write down a marketing plan, we're going to talk about some of the categories and considerations that we include in a marketing plan. So my first question that I always ask people when they say, hey, I need to put together a marketing plan, I say, do you already have one? Because the answer is probably that you do. You probably have already gone through this thought process at some point, whether it was because you realized you grew something and didn't have anybody to sell it to, so now you're scrambling trying to figure out what your marketing plan is, or if you intentionally put thought into who you're going to sell your product to, that's a marketing plan, again, because marketing planning is a process, not a product. The next question that I ask people is, how are you going to use it? Are you using your marketing plan to start your farm? Are you using your marketing plan to change your farm? Or are you using your marketing plan to adjust the profitability of a current operation? Because that's going to change how much effort and time we're putting into certain pieces. And then I would encourage you to think about where you're going to keep this. It can be something that's on your phone in a note. It can be something that's on your computer. It can be something that you print out and you put in the farm office. And then I ask, who are you going to share it with? Is it something that's just for yourself that you're putting together to go through this process? Is it something that you're trying to convince your farm partner that you have a really good idea? Look at this marketing plan I put together, right? Or is it something that you need to provide to a bank or a lender? These are typically components that would be included in a marketing plan. They vary from farm to farm based on what that farm's producing, based on who their target consumer is, and it'll change based on audience. So what you need in a marketing plan to go through that process is different than what a banker might need. In general, marketing plans are meant to be an outline or a suggestion, not a to-do list. It's not meant to be, I have to do every single thing that I've ever dreamed of doing or else I'm not successful. It's meant to be, here are some ideas, some ways that I can reach my goals. This is an outline that I use when I'm working with farms to develop a marketing plan. So first we define what's currently going on. We spend time building our target consumer. We do a SWOT analysis. So we look at what we're doing really well, what our strengths are, what we're doing. There's some room for opportunity, right? What our weaknesses are, what are external opportunities that are out there, what are external threats that are out there that we need to consider. We talk about budget, right? So how much money do we have to explore new marketing avenues, and what strategies are we going to use? And then we make an action plan. So these are the SMART goals. These are the steps. This is exactly what I'm going to do, and here's how I'm going to evaluate whether or not that was successful. This is an outline that I use. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's great for small and beginning farms, even mid-sized farms that are making decisions, because it really answers the questions that you need to know. Depending on who your marketing plan, though, is targeting, they might ask you to consider and write down other things. So a super fancy one would have a cover page, it would have an executive summary, a full market assessment, a full external SWOT analysis with very specific action protocols. Another example might include, for beginning farms particularly, that are getting really into value-added products or high processing products, is an intensive market research period, conversation piece of the marketing plan, and defining out this marketing mix. So who are the product, price, place, promotion? And then some marketing plans that are a little bit more in-depth include contingency planning. So you have a farmer's market that you go to, farmer's market closes, what do you do next? You use one processor for your product, that processor closes, how does that change my marketing from there? So considerations when it comes to making a marketing plan, particularly when we're thinking about it as a process and not a product, is to know your audience for the marketing plan. I would argue that the most important audience is yourself. So allowing yourself space and time to look at the numbers, consider your target customer, consider the 4 Ps, consider what brings you joy and how does that fit into your farm, and make yourself the audience for your marketing plan first. Then the next consideration is to revisit your marketing plan often. So throughout the season, go back to your marketing plan. Every time you are thinking about trying something new, go back to your marketing plan. And you don't need it to be flowery, right? This isn't going to a grant application. This isn't going to a banker. This is something for you. Talk how you would like to read. So keep it simple, make notes. It doesn't even need to be full sentences. Some other things to consider, particularly, is to reflect on the industry that you're in. So if you are in beef production and you've always been in beef production, reflect on what has your experience been so far and what's the future going to be. Do you need to find a different industry? Do you need to find a different avenue? If the answer is yes, I would encourage you to come to our June seminar on farm diversification. Think about your product. What are the basic features of your product and why is your product important? Why does somebody need your product? Why is your product special? And are there any legal considerations that need to be included in your marketing plan? Then think about your pricing. Based on your target audience, what's their willingness to pay? What's your cost of production? What's your cost of marketing? And do you have a unique product that demands a higher price? I also think that there's room for pricing based on distribution channels, and sometimes I get pushback from this, but here's how I would consider this. You have a farm stand at your house, at your farm, where you just take product out there, people drive by and they buy it. It's your local community. You live in a rural area where medium income is lower. You also go to a bougie farmer's market in the city. You have travel costs to get there, time to sit there, and market fees. Your target audience is different. This target audience has more disposable income. They're going to a farmer's market as an experience, not as a way to feed their family. You should be charging more for your product at the farmer's market than you do at your farm stand. You have more cost to get it there. You have a different target audience, and it does not make you a bad person if you do that. I think that there's this idea that we need to sell food as cheap as possible. And in some cases we do. If our target audience is our local community, if our target audience has lower income, that's the mission of our farm, great. Then we need to make sure that we're honoring our time and effort and that we're happy with what we're doing. If we can use a higher end market as a way to build financial stability and sustainability into our farm, I think it is a good idea to create different pricing schedules for different distribution channels. Thinking about, again, how much money does it cost for you to make that? And are you charging enough on a unit scale to do that, to at least break even? Clarifying again, who is your customer, and looking at who your competitors are and how can you, get the upper hand? What makes you unique? And then I think this is the last slide. Identify what promotional tactics you're going to use, what distribution channels are going to fit for you, and write those down on your back of the notebook, on your napkin, in your notebook, whatever works for you. So these last 3 slides are kind of, if you just want to ask yourself questions, these are the questions to ask. These links didn't load up the way they're supposed to. So in the follow-up email that everybody gets with these slides, I'm going to have some resources. There's blank marketing plan templates. There's an assessment guide on identifying marketing channels, and there are resources for identifying places that you can go to get a market assessment. And because we're running out of time, I do want to give everybody a couple of minutes to reflect on these questions, so we will circle back to this. What I'm going to do at this point is, let me just I got to X out of this really quick to put this in the survey or in the chat. And then we will go back to this slide. So at this point, that is the end of the presentation as I have it. I, again, would encourage you to think about marketing planning as a process, not a product. A lot of times we are thinking we're going to get a product out of this, but we don't. We just need to justify to ourselves who are our customers and how are we going to be profitable. And developing a marketing plan as a process is the way to do that. So what I would encourage you to do is, I'm going to hang out here for another 10 minutes, but I do recognize that it's 7:30, so I want to honor everybody's time if you want to go catch the last few rays of sunshine of the day. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat. I'll stop the recording as well if you have a specific question. I also put into the chat the survey link. I would ask everybody to take the time now to open that up and complete the survey. And then the other thing that I would encourage you to do is read through these last few kind of like reflection questions, which are, what's your time frame for putting together a marketing plan? How can you use the information that we talked about tonight to start or grow ideas that you already have? And which pieces of the marketing plan are you excited about? Which pieces of the marketing plan do you know you're going to need a little bit more support on? So to recap, if you need to hop off, that's okay. If you can stay on for a few minutes, I would ask that you complete that survey. And if you can stay on for another few minutes, I would ask that you start jotting down the answers to these questions. I'm going to play some music in the background. I'll be here, and thank you all for joining me tonight. You'll be getting a follow-up email from me, so please feel free to respond to that if you have any questions or comments from there. Okay. Oh, I think we just lost our, I'm going to copy and paste these questions into the chat.